Not everyone is meant to walk beside you. Some were never meant to have access to you in the first place. Yet, they thought they could define you, control you, mold your story into something that served their own interests. They saw your light and mistook it for something they could manipulate, something they could use to elevate themselves. But what they didn't realize is that you were never just another piece in their game. You were never someone to be claimed, contained, or reduced to a footnote in their self-serving narrative. You were chosen, not by them, not by circumstance, but by something far greater. You carry a presence that cannot be replicated, a truth that cannot be rewritten, and a power that cannot be stolen. They tried to shape your image to fit their convenience, but in the end, they only revealed their own deception. They thought they had control, until they lost the one thing they never truly valued: you. Now, as they sit in the wreckage of their own choices, they realize too late that your absence is louder than their lies, that their betrayal cost them more than they ever anticipated, that you were never the one who needed them. It was always the other way around. The truth has shattered their illusion, and the mask they wore so effortlessly has begun to slip. But you are no longer looking back, because this was never about them. This is about you, your power, your resilience, your transformation. And now, they can do nothing but watch as you rise, untouchable, unbothered, and completely out of their reach. For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Luke 8:17. You ever seen a house built on sand? It may stand for a little while, but when the storm comes, the foundation crumbles, the walls collapse, and all that's left is debris. That's what happens when deception is the foundation of someone's story. They thought they could build their kingdom on lies, on twisted narratives, on illusions crafted for their own benefit. They believed they could shape reality to fit their desires, rewrite history to absolve themselves. But truth is a storm that does not leave deception standing. Bonds once fractured cannot be mended with mere regret. Regret is not restoration. A guilty conscience does not erase the damage done. Betrayal does not simply fade with time. The weight of consequence lingers, pressing down, demanding to be acknowledged. And this was never about sorrow. It was about power, about losing grip, about watching control slip through desperate fingers. And now, as they stand in the wreckage of their own making, they do what all the faithless do. They try to rewrite the past. They spin a new story, stitch together false narratives, mold themselves into victims of misfortune instead of the architects of their own downfall. But you cannot argue with the truth. The whispers they once relied on to shift perception have gone silent. The illusion they worked so hard to create has turned to dust. They stretch out their hands for restoration, but truth does not move for convenience. They thought they could bury their betrayal beneath time, but what they failed to understand is that some things do not disappear. They linger. Every choice they made, every lie they fed, every moment they chose their ego over honesty, it all remains, standing as testimony against them. They were not careful with what was sacred, and now they reap the cost of their recklessness. And now they want to fix it. But wanting is not enough. Apologies, no matter how well crafted, do not erase the past. Confessions do not undo the weight of what has already been done. They convince themselves that control was theirs, that they could shape how this would all play out. But there are some things beyond human manipulation, and the one thing they never accounted for was you, because you are not who you once were. The version of you they betrayed no longer exists. What was once broken has been rebuilt, not by them, but by grace, by wisdom, by the lessons their betrayal taught you. They expected to find you where they left you, but you are not there. And now, all that's left is for them to face the consequences. Not because you seek revenge, but because you are no longer accessible to those who mistook you for something disposable. Some bridges were never meant to be rebuilt. They lost the right to shape the story. And now they must live in the truth they tried to avoid. Drop a thought. Deception is a house built on shifting sand. It cannot stand. Betrayal does not announce itself with a roar. It sneaks in, quiet and insidious, weaving doubts into the fabric of trust. They believed they could control perception, dictate the way the world saw you, sculpt a version of events that served their desires. But truth is relentless. Now, the web they spun tightens around them. The fiction they created collapsing beneath scrutiny. The mask they so carefully crafted has begun to fracture, and the very people they once relied upon now regard them with uncertainty. The power they sought was never truly theirs. It was borrowed, illusionary, and fleeting. They spun their stories, manipulated perspectives, turned circumstances in their favor, all in an effort to keep themselves above you. Yet no manipulation outlasts reality. The very deceit meant to suppress has fueled resurgence instead. Their empire, built on distortion, erodes beneath them, leaving them stranded in the wreckage of their own creation. It was never just about words. It was an assault on identity, an effort to drain, to weaken, to force doubt where there was once certainty. Every lie whispered, every scheme orchestrated, every underhanded move was designed to fracture resolve. But resilience does not shatter under pressure. They underestimated the ability to endure, to rise in defiance of their schemes. And now, as they stand amidst the ruins of their own design, the shift in power is undeniable. What they once controlled has slipped beyond their reach, and the fear of their own irrelevance gnaws at them. The moment authority shifted, so did the tides of consequence. What was once taken, drained, depleted, stolen in silence, has been returned, but not in its former state. It has multiplied, strengthened, and evolved into something unreachable to those who once thrived off its absence. They observe from a distance, watching as power realigns itself in your favor, fully aware that there is no going back. The fracture they created cannot be seamlessly mended, and the weight of their past actions now presses down on them. They fumble for entry, grasping at remnants of what was lost, hoping to reclaim what slipped from their hands. But restoration is not granted through mere words. The echoes of their actions linger, and the choice no longer belongs to them. Their intent, whether genuine repentance or self-preserving desperation, is irrelevant now. The only thing that holds weight is the truth you now wield, and the decision of what to do with it. The energy they cast outward has returned, not as they expected, but as a relentless storm, uprooting the illusions they built their world upon. The carefully constructed falsehoods, the web of deception they so effortlessly spun, have folded in on themselves, leaving them entangled in the very chaos they once controlled. The past does not sleep. It does not dissipate under the weight of denial. Instead, it lingers, an unshakable force pressing against them, demanding to be reckoned with. Their nights stretch long and restless, haunted by choices they once dismissed, by the moments they betrayed not just you, but themselves. The weight of accountability is not kind, and the realization dawns. Every move against you was also a dismantling of their own foundation. They do not stand as the force they once believed themselves to be. Their confidence was an illusion, their authority a construct of deception. And now, with the mask shattered, all that remains is an identity built on fabrication. What unsettles them most is not the loss of control, but the undeniable truth. They were never the ones dictating fate. The consequences were never avoidable. They were merely delayed. Perception was a distorted lens through which they viewed you, a fusion of half-truths and carefully planted deceit that they willingly embraced. They let external whispers shape their actions, cloud their judgment, and fuel their resentment. They mistook manipulation for insight and allowed jealousy to dictate their decisions. Now, stripped of illusion, they are left with nothing but the aftermath of their choices. The weight of their misjudgment is suffocating, but it is theirs to bear alone. They yearn for relief, grasping at apologies as if they hold the power to reverse time. But regret does not mend what has already been broken, nor do empty words bridge the gap created by betrayal. They convince themselves that acknowledgement is enough, that speaking their remorse aloud will somehow wipe the slate clean. But reality is far less forgiving. The destruction they caused has settled into permanence, its impact carved deep. The past is immovable, and trust does not regenerate from mere intention. No matter how much they wish to rewrite their part in the story, the ink has already dried. What they seek is not true reconciliation, but an escape from the weight of their own actions. Whether they long to make amends or merely avoid the consequences is irrelevant. Redemption is not granted through words alone, and even if they understand the depth of their transgressions, that does not entitle them to a place in your life. Growth does not erase history, and transformation does not undo betrayal. Acknowledgement does not demand forgiveness. They may hope that time has blurred the details, that distance has dulled the sting, but memory does not fade so easily. The past cannot be rewritten, nor can their actions be undone. If they seek restoration, they must prove it, not through fleeting gestures, but through relentless, undeniable change. Even then, it may never be enough. They are owed nothing, not space, not energy, not trust. Whether the bridge is rebuilt or left in ruins is no longer in their hands, but one truth remains certain. The power they once wielded is gone forever. You are not here by accident. If you feel the pull, the knowing deep inside that you are chosen, this is your moment. Click the super thank you button and give $50 or more to unlock deeper insights, exclusive content, and a path that aligns with your divine purpose. This isn't just a contribution, it's a declaration, a step toward who you were meant to be. Answer the call, walk with us, and step fully into your destiny. Your journey begins now. What was once lost has now been reclaimed. No longer bound by past wounds, the weight of betrayal has given way to clarity. This journey was never about them. It was about transformation, about awakening, about stepping into something greater. Betrayal does not merely break, it reveals. It strips away illusion, exposing truth in its rawest form, forcing a reckoning that cannot be ignored. What once seemed solid was nothing more than a fragile mirage, and what once felt secure was merely an illusion of stability. Through fire and chaos, something unshakable emerged, a self no longer willing to be dimmed by deception. They thought they had taken something vital, had left behind irreparable wounds, but in reality, they only accelerated evolution. Growth is relentless. It does not ask permission, nor does it seek validation. Hardship is the great sculptor, chiseling away naivety, carving out wisdom, and fortifying resilience. This is the knowledge few will ever understand. What it means to discern, to protect, to recognize who is truly deserving of presence and who was only ever a shadow masquerading as an ally. This understanding came at a price, through scars, through disillusionment, through nights spent questioning all that once seemed certain. But in the end, it left behind something undeniable, an unshakable force, untethered and unbreakable. Perception was a distorted lens through which they viewed you, a fusion of half-truths and carefully planted deceit that they willingly embraced. They let external whispers shape their actions, cloud their judgment, and fuel their resentment. They mistook manipulation for insight and allowed jealousy to dictate their decisions. Now, stripped of illusion, they are left with nothing but the aftermath of their choices. The weight of their misjudgment is suffocating, but it is theirs to bear alone. They yearn for relief, grasping at apologies as if they hold the power to reverse time. But regret does not mend what has already been broken, nor do empty words bridge the gap created by betrayal. They convince themselves that acknowledgement is enough, that speaking their remorse aloud will somehow wipe the slate clean. But reality is far less forgiving. The destruction they caused has settled into permanence, its impact carved deep. The past is immovable, and trust does not regenerate from mere intention. No matter how much they wish to rewrite their part in the story, the ink has already dried. What they seek is not true reconciliation, but an escape from the weight of their own actions. Whether they long to make amends or merely avoid the consequences is irrelevant. Redemption is not granted through words alone, and even if they understand the depth of their transgressions, that does not entitle them to a place in your life. Growth does not erase history, and transformation does not undo betrayal. Acknowledgement does not demand forgiveness. They may hope that time has blurred the details, that distance has dulled the sting, but memory does not fade so easily. The past cannot be rewritten, nor can their actions be undone. If they seek restoration, they must prove it, not through fleeting gestures, but through relentless, undeniable change. Even then, it may never be enough. They are owed nothing, not space, not energy, not trust. Whether the bridge is rebuilt or left in ruins is no longer in their hands. But one truth remains certain. The power they once wielded is gone forever. What was once lost has now been reclaimed. No longer bound by past wounds, the weight of betrayal has given way to clarity. This journey was never about them. It was about transformation, about awakening, about stepping into something greater. Betrayal does not merely break, it reveals. It strips away illusion, exposing truth in its rawest form, forcing a reckoning that cannot be ignored. What once seemed solid was nothing more than a fragile mirage, and what once felt secure was merely an illusion of stability. Through fire and chaos, something unshakable emerged, a self no longer willing to be dimmed by deception. They thought they had taken something vital, had left behind irreparable wounds, but in reality, they only accelerated evolution. Growth is relentless. It does not ask permission, nor does it seek validation. Hardship is the great sculptor, chiseling away naivety, carving out wisdom, and fortifying resilience. This is the knowledge few will ever understand. What it means to discern, to protect, to recognize who is truly deserving of presence, and who was only ever a shadow masquerading as an ally. This understanding came at a price, through scars, through disillusionment, through nights spent questioning all that once seemed certain. But in the end, it left behind something undeniable, an unshakable force, untethered and unbreakable. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment, you shall condemn. Isaiah 54:17. Like a tree planted by the river, roots deep in truth, you have withstood the storm that was meant to break you. Winds of deception blew, but they could not uproot you. The floodwaters of betrayal rose, but they could not drown you. They thought they could weaken you by taking what was yours, siphoning your energy, stealing your light. But what they didn't realize was that the very thing they tried to strip away was not lost. It was being refined, strengthened, multiplied. What was meant for your downfall became the fire that purified you, the pressure that turned stone into diamond. And now, as they look upon you, they see not someone who was destroyed, but someone they can no longer reach. You have ascended beyond the limitations they once placed upon you. No longer confined by their expectations, no longer bound by their narratives, you walk in a power that cannot be controlled. Where uncertainty once lived, now there is clarity. Where confusion once clouded your mind, now there is divine wisdom. The tricks they used before, the manipulation, the schemes, they are powerless against you now. You see it before it even takes shape. You recognize the signs before they can manifest. You have become untouchable, not because you escaped the battle, but because you walked through it and emerged transformed. They believed they could dictate your story, rewrite your truth, cast you as the villain in their narrative. But truth is not a thing that can be rewritten by those who lack the authority to shape it. The very lies they spread have become the chains that now bind them. The pit they dug for you has become their own captivity. While they search for a way to reverse the damage, you are walking freely into what was always destined for you. The person they once deceived no longer exists. The wounds have healed, the scars have become marks of resilience, and the pain has been alchemized into wisdom. They expected forgiveness to be immediate, restoration to be guaranteed, a path back into your life to be waiting for them. But where they expected open arms, they find a door that no longer welcomes them. Where they assumed they could return, they now find only silence. And that silence speaks louder than any words ever could. Because this is not about revenge. This is not about bitterness. This is about growth. This is about stepping into divine alignment, into the space where you were always meant to be. The past no longer holds you. Regret no longer weighs on you. Their actions no longer define your path. They may watch from afar, longing for what they once had, aching for the connection they threw away. But it is no longer yours to give. You are not bound by their choices. You are not shackled by their mistakes. You are free. You are walking in truth. And that truth, it has set you apart. The past cannot be rewritten, nor can it be undone. They tell themselves that if they find the right words, the right way to frame their regret, they may be granted another chance. But time has not softened the truth, nor has distance erased the impact of their actions. What they once manipulated now stands beyond their influence, and the weight of their choices is theirs to carry alone. What was taken was never truly lost, only redirected, only waiting to return in greater form. Now, the power is yours alone. The story is no longer theirs to twist or control. Their reputation, their guilt, their desperate need for absolution, none of it defines your path. This journey was never about them. It was about clarity, about breaking free from illusion, about seeing the truth beneath the surface. What they did was a reflection of them, never of you. They now stand in the wreckage of their own creation, watching as the life they tried to shatter thrives without them. Regret is a heavy burden, but it is not yours to bear. Whether redemption is possible is no longer your concern. The choice is yours: to acknowledge, to ignore, to walk away without a second glance. One thing remains absolute: the power they once clung to is gone. Their place in your story has ended, and the only direction left to go is forward. The victory was never in their downfall, it was always in your rise. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked, for whatever one sows, that will he also reap. Galatians 6:7. There's an old saying, you can't plant thorns and expect roses to grow. They thought they could throw seeds of deception, water them with manipulation, and somehow reap a harvest of loyalty. But the ground doesn't lie. The soil knows what was sown, and now the fruit of their actions has come full circle. You were never the one who needed them. They were the ones who needed you. They didn't see it then, but they see it now. They told themselves they were in control, that they could shape the narrative to fit their own convenience. They thought time would blur the lines, that their return would be welcomed, that enough distance would soften the memory of their betrayal. But time does not erase truth, and you have not forgotten. The past is not something they can sweep away with well-crafted apologies or well-timed remorse. Broken trust does not mend itself. What was shattered cannot be undone with words alone. The lies they fed, the assumptions they clung to, the choices they made, they built a wall between you, and now they are on the other side, unable to cross back over. Regret is a heavy burden, but it is theirs to carry, not yours. They look at you now and see what they failed to value. They see the strength they once tried to diminish, the light they attempted to dim. And they are learning too late that some things, once lost, can never be reclaimed. They assumed the door would always be open, that they could waltz back into your life when it suited them. But the truth is undeniable. You owe them nothing. Nothing obligates you to rebuild what they tore apart. Nothing requires you to extend your hand to those who used theirs to strike against you. Forgiveness is not the same as access. They can be sorry, but that does not mean they deserve to stand beside you again. If redemption is truly what they seek, it will take more than mere words. It will take unwavering action, humility, and accountability. And even then, some bridges are meant to stay burned, because this journey was never about them. This was about you, your strength, your growth, your clarity. What was meant to destroy you only refined you. Every falsehood, every attempt to break you, every betrayal became fuel for your transformation. They thought they were writing your ending, but all they did was force you into a greater beginning. Now they watch, realizing too late that they were never the author of your story. The pen was always in your hands. They were merely a chapter, one that has already been written and closed. So walk forward, head high, heart steady, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in power. Because what they lost forever. And you have already won. The person they betrayed no longer exists. Transformation has rewritten everything they thought they knew, leaving them as mere spectators to a story they can no longer influence. This was never about them. It was about growth, about clarity, about stepping into something untouchable. Betrayal has a way of revealing what once remained hidden, of pulling back the curtain on deception and forcing truth into the light. It was never just about loss. It was a fire that refined, that sharpened, that forged something indestructible. They see it now, the strength that radiates where they once tried to plant doubt, the resilience that has taken root where they hoped to see weakness. They regret it, not for the harm they caused, but for what they lost. They want to reshape how they are seen, to rewrite the narrative of their own actions, to erase the parts that now haunt them. But regret does not undo the past, and apologies do not mend wounds they never intended to prevent. Whether they find peace or remain trapped in the consequences of their choices is no longer your concern. The decision of whether to grant them entry or leave them in the ruins of their own creation belongs only to you. One truth remains unshaken. They will never again dictate the course of your story. What they lost is not your burden to carry. Keep walking forward, unapologetically, powerfully, knowing that the victory was never about their downfall. It was, and always will be, about your rise.